to the brave, hear the drums marching through the storm and sun. Brothers, sisters, one by one, stand together, war's begun. Flags are waving, skies are gray. Freedom's price we all will pay. Voices echo, hearts ignite. Pepper's orders day and night. Breaking news, the hope we see. Spirit strong and never weak. From the ashes rise to fame. Hail to the brave in freedom's day.
Hey. Welcome to the very first episode of Pepper Uncensored. I'm your host, Pepper. And this podcast is going to be exactly what it sounds like. Uncensored. No filters, no sugarcoating, just real, raw, honest conversation. And let me tell you, we're about to dive into some things that need to be said, but that so many other places won't touch. I know you've been there, scrolling through your feed, trying to talk about something important, something real, and bam, a little warning, a shadow ban, or even worse, an outright takedown. And all you said was your opinion. But here's the deal. That's exactly why Pepper Uncensored exists. We're here for everyone who is sick of being silenced, tired of the code words, and frustrated with the tech overlords deciding what we're allowed to talk about. Let's talk about it. Remember when TikTok went down for 17 hours? The world went nuts. Everyone panicked. But let's be honest, it wasn't even a great app before it shut down. Was it? It's not the only platform that controls the conversation, and we all know it. They have their rules, their limits, and don't get me started on the censorship. This is where Pepper Uncensored comes in. This podcast is a place where we get to speak our minds without worrying about a ban, a shadow ban, or some ridiculous algorithm trying to control us. I'm here to tell you, we're not going to hold back. If you're tired of feeling like you're walking on eggshells, like you can't express yourself without fear of being erased, then this podcast is for you. We're going to talk about the things that matter, the things that no one else is talking about, and we're going to do it unapologetically. So buckle up, because this is only the beginning. Let's dive into the truth and let's start the conversation that's long overdue. Welcome to Pepper Uncensored. Let's get into it. All right, let's get into it. Because I'm not here to tiptoe around the big issues. One of the biggest reasons I'm doing Pepper Uncensored is because censorship is out of control. And let's be real, it's not just happening on TikTok. Though we all remember the 17-hour shutdown, right? Yeah, that was a mess. The world went crazy, people couldn't post, couldn't scroll, and let's face it, some people probably couldn't even remember how to exist without TikTok for a few hours. But here's the thing. TikTok wasn't great before it went down. In fact, it was a mess of censorship, shadow bans, and community guidelines that didn't make sense to anyone except the algorithm itself. But it's not just TikTok. You've got Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all these platforms. And they all have one thing in common. They limit you. They limit what you can say, what you can post, and what kind of content gets to see the light of day. Ever had your post flagged or taken down for violating community guidelines? And you're sitting there like, what did I even say? I'm just talking about my opinion. And those vague violations leave you guessing what you did wrong. They leave you walking on eggshells like a kid afraid to speak up in class. It's funny though, right? All these apps, these so-called free speech platforms, are doing anything but supporting free speech. They've got their rules, their regulations, their content standards, which, by the way, are constantly changing. You can't keep up. You think you're good to go, and boom, suddenly you said the wrong thing, or even worse, they just don't like the tone of your post. It's like being punished for thinking for yourself. And don't even get me started on code words. Oh yeah, we all know the code words. You want to talk about something that might get flagged? You got to speak in code now. You got to figure out how to talk around the real issue, because God forbid you say the wrong thing. It's like we're all living in this strange dystopia where we can't even say what's really on our minds because we're too scared of being shut down. And that's what this podcast is for. No more of that. No more self censorship just to keep from getting banned. No more pew pews, no more unaliving. Here we can talk freely, and you can too. We will say guns, and we will say dead. Now, let me hit you with the reality. When these platforms shut us down, they're controlling the flow of information. They're controlling how we communicate. And when we can't speak freely, that's dangerous. That's when we start losing control of the narrative. We lose the right to share our opinions, to connect with others who think like we do, and worse, we lose our ability to challenge the status quo. And that's a problem. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what this means for our society. Because the more we allow this censorship to slide by, the more we're setting ourselves up to be silenced for good. But here's where we turn it around. Pepper Uncensored is here to reclaim our voices. We're taking the mic back. We're going to have those tough conversations without fear, without shame, and without the overbearing tech gods telling us what's acceptable. All right, now that we've tackled the elephant in the room, that's what she said, the censorship that's plaguing every platform out there, let's talk about what this podcast is really about. I've made it clear that Pepper Uncensored is going to be unfiltered, raw, and unapologetic. But let's break it down a little more because this isn't just about ranting or venting. No, no, no. This is about reclaiming a space for real conversation where nothing's off limits and no one's going to try to silence us. This podcast is for the people who are tired of being censored, tired of walking on eggshells, tired of speaking in code, tired of feeling like every word you say has to be calculated because there's a risk that the tech giants are watching you. I know you're out there. You're the ones who are over the fake free speech promises made by these platforms. And you're ready for something different. You're ready for a place where you can say what's on your mind without worrying about whether it's acceptable. And here's the thing, Pepper Uncensored is more than just a space to rant, it's a space for truth. I'm going to say things that you might not hear elsewhere, and I'm going to say them loud and clear. Whether it's politics, pop culture, social issues, or just life's frustrations, we're going to dive into it all. No holds barred. Because let's face it, if we don't talk about the tough stuff, we're never going to change anything. And that's exactly what this podcast is about, change, and not Obama's change. It's about challenging the status quo, about looking at the world around us and saying enough is enough, whether it's how we're being controlled by tech giants, how we're being manipulated by the media, or how we're constantly told what to think. It's time to stop playing by their rules and start playing by our own. This is a podcast where the truth comes first and the BS comes last. We're not going to sugarcoat anything because the truth doesn't need sugar, it needs to be told. Now, I know some people are going to be uncomfortable with some of the things we're going to talk about. That's the point. The truth is uncomfortable sometimes, but we can't be afraid of it. If we start censoring ourselves for the sake of comfort, we're doing a disservice to ourselves and to each other. So, whether you agree or disagree with me, this podcast is about opening up the dialogue, giving voice to the voiceless, and pushing boundaries. We're going to hear things that might challenge you, but that's the point. We need to think critically. We need to question the narrative. So here's what you can expect in upcoming episodes. We're going to talk about the big issues, topics that others might be too scared to touch, censorship and how it's affecting us, the rise of political correctness and how it's squashing free expression, the dangers of tech tyranny and how these companies are reshaping our reality. And let's not forget the personal stuff. We're going to dig deep into real life experiences and tackle everything from relationships to politics to mental health to astrology because it's all a part of the bigger picture. We're not going to shy away from anything. And you know what? I want you to be a part of this conversation. This isn't just me talking to you. This is about building a community of people who are done with the status quo and who want to take their voices back. I want to hear from you. I want you to share your thoughts, your stories, your frustrations. Let's make this a two-way conversation because when we speak up, when we refuse to be silenced, that's when we start making real change. So, buckle up, my friends. This is only the beginning. Get ready for a podcast that's not afraid to go there and get ready to hear things you might not hear anywhere else. Welcome to Pepper Uncensored. This is your space. Let's get it all out there. All right, let's dive a little bit deeper into something that's been bugging me for a while now. Big tech, the companies that own the platforms we use every single day: Facebook, Google, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. They all have one thing in common: they control what we see, what we say, and what we know. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't sit right with me, and it shouldn't sit right with you either. We've all felt it. You try to post something important, something real, and all of a sudden it's flagged, taken down, or you're hit with that dreaded community guidelines warning. Now you're probably wondering, what the hell did I even do wrong? It's just my opinion. Well, my friends, that's the problem. When it's just your opinion and it's not the right opinion, you're silenced. Big tech has become more than just a way to connect with others. It's a force, a massive, all encompassing force that determines the flow of information. They have the power to influence elections, sway public opinion, and shape the narrative on literally every topic under the sun. It's scary. And it's not just about censorship, it's about control. The algorithms they use, the rules they enforce, they're all designed to mold us, to push us into thinking a certain way, to keep us in line. And it's not just about what they take down, it's about what they let through. They let you share a picture of your breakfast, a cute cat video, but when you try to post something that challenges the status quo, that's where the problems begin. They get to decide what's appropriate for the public to see. They decide what's safe for the platform and who exactly are they protecting? Themselves. You think they care about your safety or well-being? Let's get real. They care about their bottom line. The more time you spend on their platform, the more money they make. It's not about your freedom of speech or your right to express yourself. It's about getting you hooked, getting you addicted to the constant scroll, the notifications, the dopamine hits. The minute you try to break out of the algorithm's hold, you're punished. You're pushed down, they bury your content, they limit your reach, and they make you feel like your voice doesn't matter. But here's the kicker: the more we let this happen, the more we're giving up. We're giving up control of the conversation. We're giving up control of what we see, and we're giving up control of how we engage with the world. And let's not forget how biased it all is. We all know that these platforms lean one way or another, and it's not always in our favor. They create echo chambers, they amplify certain voices, and they suppress others. They decide what's acceptable based on their own standards, which frankly are all over the place. Now, I'm not saying that tech companies shouldn't have guidelines or moderation. I get it. There's got to be some level of protection against hate speech, violence, and all that crazy stuff. But what we're dealing with now goes way beyond that. What we're seeing now is concerted effort to control thought, to make sure we stay within a certain bubble, a certain narrative that benefits them and their agenda. And when we're controlled, we stop thinking for ourselves. We stop asking questions. And that's when things get dangerous. This is why Pepper Uncensored exists: to break free from that control. We're not going to let big tech decide what's acceptable for us to talk about. We're going to have those conversations, all of those conversations, anyways. We're going to say the things that matter, even if they're uncomfortable. We're going to challenge the narrative, and we're going to do it unapologetically, because if we don't, we risk losing our ability to speak at all. And that's a future I'm not willing to accept. Are you? Let's get real for a second. Why does free speech matter so much? I mean, it sounds like something that should be a no brainer, right? We should all have the right to say what's on our minds. But I feel like we've forgotten just how important this really is. We've gotten so comfortable with being censored, with being told what we can and can't say, and we've started to believe it's okay. But here's the truth: the cost of silence is far too high. Free speech isn't just about saying what you want. It's about the ability to express your thoughts, your opinions, and your experiences without fear of retaliation, without fear of being silenced or erased from the conversation. It's about having the freedom to challenge ideas, to question authority, and to speak truth to power. And when that's taken away from us, when we start censoring ourselves to avoid the risk of being shut down or punished, that's when we lose our voice. And that's when we lose our power. Think about it. Every time we self censor, every time we hold back out of fear of being flagged or banned, we give up a little piece of our freedom. And once we start giving up those pieces, it's not long before we don't even recognize the world we live in. We start accepting the narrative that's handed to us. We stop questioning things. We stop thinking for ourselves. And that, my friends, is the danger. Now I get it. Sometimes it's easy to just go along with the flow. It's easier to stay silent than to rock the boat. It's easier to stay in the safe lane, say what you know will be accepted, and avoid the hassle. But at what cost? When we stay silent, we're complicit in the very thing that's keeping us from real progress. When we're afraid to speak up, we allow the narrative to be shaped by those who are the loudest or by those who have the most power. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a world where only the loudest voices get to control the conversation. So, what does that mean for us? It means that we need to get comfortable with discomfort. We need to start speaking up, even when it's hard, even when it's unpopular. We need to be willing to have tough conversations. We need to stop letting fear dictate what we say and how we say it. Because every time we hold back, we're making it easier for others to control the narrative. And the longer we let this happen, the harder it will be to take it back. We also need to recognize that free speech isn't just about our right to speak, it's about our right to listen. It's about hearing different perspectives, even when they don't align with our own. It's about creating an environment where ideas can be exchanged freely without fear of retribution. The more we allow ourselves to be censored, the more we silence those voices that may be critical, that may challenge us, but that also have the potential to make us better. So, why does free speech matter? Because without it, we lose our ability to think critically, to engage meaningfully, and to shape the world around us. We stop being active participants in our own society, and instead, we become passive consumers of whatever narrative is fed to us. And that's a future I refuse to accept. How about you? Now that we've talked about why free speech is so important and why staying silent is the last thing we should do, it's time to dive into how we actually reclaim our voices. Because let's be honest, the idea of speaking up can feel intimidating. We've been conditioned to stay quiet, to toe the line, to keep our heads down and just go with the flow. But I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. We have the power to change the narrative. We just have to take it back. First things first, you have to stop being afraid of the backlash. Yeah, I said it. We've all seen the consequences of speaking out: lost followers, getting banned from platforms, maybe even getting dragged through the mud. It's not easy. But here's the thing: the more we stay silent to avoid the noise, the more power we give to the ones trying to shut us down, the more we let them win. And if we don't speak up now, what happens next? Are we really willing to let our voices be erased completely? I'm not, and I hope you're not either. So how do you speak up without fear? How do you say the things that matter when everything is stacked against you? Let's break it down. Start small, but start. If jumping into a big, controversial conversation feels overwhelming, that's okay. Start small. Share your thoughts, your experiences, your opinions with people who are open minded and willing to listen. It could be a friend, a family member, or a colleague. The more you practice speaking your truth, the easier it becomes. And trust me, it gets addicting. Once you start speaking your mind, you'll find that you can't stop. And that's a good thing. Get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. If we only talk about things that are safe or socially acceptable, we're never going to grow. The real change happens when we have those tough, uncomfortable conversations. And guess what? Those conversations are the ones that need to happen. It's going to feel uncomfortable at first, but that's where growth happens, both for you and for the people you're talking to. Don't let fear control you. The fear of being canceled or reprimanded is real. But here's something that might surprise you. Most of the time, The fear of backlash is worse than the backlash itself. Most people who speak up don't get canceled. In fact, they find that their voice is a lot more powerful than they realize. The more you speak up, the more confidence you build. You start realizing that you don't have to play by their rules. And the more people who do that, the more we shift the balance of power. Surround yourself with like minded people. You are not alone in this. There are thousands of people out there who are sick of being silenced, who are tired of self censorship, who are ready to start speaking their truth. Find your tribe, build a community of people who support you, who encourage you, and who understand why you're speaking up. We are stronger together. Use your platform, even if it's small. I don't care if you have 1 million followers or just a handful of friends. Your voice matters. Every conversation you start, every post you make, every comment you share contributes to the larger movement. Platforms may limit your reach, but they can't completely erase you or your voice unless you let them. If you believe in something, speak on it. Don't let their restrictions dictate what you say. Be ready for pushback, but stand firm. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There will be pushback. People will disagree with you. They might attack you, insult you, try to shame you. That's part of the process. But here's the key. Don't back down. Stand firm in your truth. They can't silence you if you don't let them. And if enough of us stand firm, we'll make a lot more noise than they ever thought possible. Never forget the power of your voice. You know how powerful your voice is. It's the tool that can change minds, that can spark a movement, that can challenge the status quo. Never forget that. And never ever let anyone make you feel like your voice doesn't matter, because it does. It matters more than you think. The bottom line is this: speaking up isn't just about defending your own beliefs, it's about creating a space for others to speak their truth too. It's about building a society where we can all be heard, where we can all have a seat at the table. But we can't get there if we don't start using our voices. It's time to stop being afraid. It's time to start speaking up, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's messy. Because silence is the killer of freedom. And we're not about to let that happen. So I challenge you today. Speak up. Say what's on your mind. Stop letting fear control you. Because the more we do this, the more we take back control of our freedom. And that's what this podcast is all about. Well, folks, that's a wrap for our first episode of Pepper Uncensored. I know we went deep today. That's what she said. But that's what this podcast is all about. No sugarcoating. No holding back. We're here to speak truth to power, challenge the status quo, and most importantly, reclaim our voices. I hope you're feeling inspired to speak your truth, no matter the consequences. Because here's the deal. The more we speak up, the less power they have over us. And when enough of us get loud, nothing can stop us. So to all of you out there who are tired of being censored, who are ready to stand up and say what needs to be said, you're not alone. We're in this together. Keep pushing forward, keep speaking your mind, and don't let anyone silence you. Your voice is more powerful than you realize. Before I go, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share this podcast with anyone who needs to hear it. Spread the word, because the more of us who are willing to have these conversations, the louder we get. And trust me, we're just getting started. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back next time with more unfiltered truth, so stay tuned, stay bold, and keep speaking up. Until then, this is Pepper, and you've been listening to Pepper Uncensored. Peace, love, and freedom of speech. Catch you next time.
From coast to coast, we'll travel far. Girls band, but dudes can join the bar. No limits here, we're breaking glass. The St. Jamon's old-fashioned class. From host to host, we tell our tales, unleashing truth like stormy gales. No censorship, our voices blast. Free speech at last, we're here to cast. We the people, we the walking tall. United we stand ready to call. Breaking the chains that held us fast. Freedom's anthem built to last. now, we're being fair. Our platform strong, it won't be tamed. Unleashing wild, unchained, untamed. So join the club, dive in the deep. No secrets here, no need to creep. We welcome all, it's time to clash. With words and thoughts, our minds will thrash. We the people, we're walking tall. United we stand ready to call. Breaking the chains that held us fast. Freedom's anthem built to last. So join the club, dive in the deep. No secrets here, no need to creep. We welcome all, it's time to clash. With words and thoughts, our minds will thrash. We the people.